Alrighty. Get to the apartment in Parliament Tower.
Who was writing who? Who was writing this poem? Me? No.
The writer of the first word, not the writer of the last. With the terror of the light and the shadows cast. The third eye now open to project the night. This is the moment to write. This is the ritual to lead you on. Your friends will meet him when you are gone. Interesting. So who is him? Is that Mr. Scratch, maybe?
Stepping to the murder site, I'd felt it, hanging in the air. A meaning, the violent emotion of the act, like a cloud of wrath. The dead eyes of the victim staring at something you couldn't see, and yet making you aware of it. Something that soaked into this place on a molecular level, overlapping with your meaningless existence. Regression to something you had managed to forget, marking you, taking you for a ride, making you crazier.
Okay. RF says, oh my god, this is just oh my god. We already got this one, right? I think we did. So we're just back here. Oh yeah, because he said the things up top had changed. The Dark Place. Photography and videography exhibition by Alice Wake. Oh yeah, his wife is a photographer. I forgot about that. And she's afraid of the dark.
The station had changed. I was closer now.
Anything good over here? Following a typical nightmare pattern, I was late, desperately trying to reach my destination. A lighthouse, for some urgent reason I couldn't remember. I've been driving to east down a coastal road to get here. You may not be the only you out there. Please carry a portable light with you in the subway. As a teenager, just starting to get interested in writing, Stephen King had been a source of inspiration to me. I thought about all the inanimate objects that had come to life in his books. No one is safe in a good horror story, certainly not the protagonist. That's what makes them fun. This was anything but. The darkness could possess anything, and it was getting closer. I had never been this glad to see the sun rise. I had a couple of hours to get to the coal mine. You think you are God? You think you can just make stuff up? You think you can play with people's lives and kill them when you think it adds to drama? You're in this story now, and I'll make you suffer. Just fascinating. RF says, this whole thing is such a love letter to longtime Remedy fans. While I agree that it sort of is, I also think, I think that's interesting, because I definitely think a lot of people are going to play this game and be like, oh, it's all just convoluted lore, and like, it's just there for the fans. But I think this is actually a storytelling thing that bothers me in like the modern era. You often hear people talk about how like things are too interconnected and everything is just setting up a sequel and everything is just lore, and lore is just background world building that like doesn't matter. But I actually think one of the reasons why I like stories like this, cross-media experiences and franchises, for lack of a better word, is that with proper care, you can set up some really interesting thematics and narratives that warp and change in structure as needed in order to tell a more engaging story. And so I don't actually think this game is just, and I know this isn't what you're saying, but I'm gonna say it here as if I'm refuting it, but I don't think that this game is a huge love letter to longtime Remedy fans. I encourage people to look at this from the opposite angle. This game is not about winking at fans, it's about paying off things that they have set up and they have worked towards. So everything else prior to this, especially Control, is building towards the themes that this game so far is trying to tackle. And that's good writing. That's not lore. That's not being like self-referential and meta. Like, all of that is just a surface level modality to what this game is doing, which is telling a really well-defined, really well signposted story using the advantages of a franchise as a medium to do the heavy lifting and do the work to define its ideas and tee itself up for a home run. You know what I mean? It's just really, really interesting. What happens when we take this? Doesn't block the door, good. So RF says, so far it seems like you don't really need to know any of the references to enjoy the story this is telling outside of it's a sequel, so AW1 is a must. I actually disagree. I don't think you need to play Alan Wake 1 to play this game, because Alan Wake 1 is the first swing at a story idea. This is actually probably my biggest issue with Alan Wake 1. Alan Wake 1 as a game, the very premise of the game is a writer rewrites reality with his stories and goes missing under mysterious circumstances. Point A to point B of Alan Wake 1 is that. There is nothing else in that game going on. I mean, there are, you know, some thematic moments with, like, Alan trying to, like, get over his, like, demons and stuff. But my biggest issue with Alan Wake is that Alan doesn't really change as a character, and the status quo is not made different from the start of Alan Wake 1 to the end of Alan Wake 1. It effectively is just what it is on the tin, which is a wacky thing happens to this writer who has a power. That's the plot. Dervis McGurp says, it does set up Mr. Scratch. Mr. Scratch is basically set up immediately in Alan Wake, because Alan from the start is saying, like, oh no, I have this dark, you know, other writer inside of me because I'm battling, like, addiction and badness. Like, that's what I'm saying, is that none of this stuff is particularly meaningful. And Mr. Scratch hasn't really actually showed up in this game or in any of the other games. So you don't need to know, you don't even need to play Alan Wake 1 to understand what is going on here, because the entire concept, like, this character is still at square one. He's still learning what his role is, and it isn't until this game that he started to actually have agency in his own narrative. So Alan Wake 1 is a good game, it's worth playing, it's an alright game, but I don't think it's essential because it is just plot. Like, Alan Wake 1 is a really good example of a story that I don't think has particularly good lore or world building. It has interesting ideas, but it just is so hampered by what it's doing. Dersner Grove says, I don't need to play American Nightmare. God, no. No one needs to no one needs to play American Nightmare. That game's like 2 hours long, and it's the same 3 levels repeated 3 times, and you just search for manuscript pages in between. It's not... American Nightmare also goes nowhere. It's not really about anything. I mean, it is about things, but that's very much like a DLC expansion pack arcade game by comparison. It's like playing Shoom in Control. But yeah. So, like, the thing that's interesting about this is that Alan Wake 2 is, like, more of a sequel to Control than it is a sequel to Alan Wake 1. And Control is more of a sequel to Alan Wake 1 than Alan Wake 2 is a sequel to Alan Wake 1, if that makes sense. Like, this game is building more off of Control's ideas than it is the first games. And it's just reusing setting and plot elements that they, like, teed up. It very much feels like a first draft.
Parliament Tower, our home in New York. Was I really this close to being home? Going up to our apartment? Would I be home? Or was this just an echo of the real thing?
All right, so I can only
Even
hold
then, the murder
4.
site had brought me one step closer to escape. The payphone at the edge of the plaza was ringing again.
Like, I think Alan Wake 1 is a really cool game. It's just, it is really just very plot driven. That's all I'm saying. Like, whereas I think that Control and Alan Wake 2's ambitions for storytelling and narrative are so, it's so clearly solidified in Control like what this universe is trying to do. So rather than just being a collection of lore and stories set in the same setting, it has like a very cohesive vision and forward moving connection that I think is very different than just being like, it's episode 250 of Alan Wake Ball Z, where Goku's gonna fight Cell again. Like, it's not like that. It's very much like, no, these are coherent ideas being established and explored through the characters and stories that need to be told before they can actually tee up for success. And in that case, Alan Wake 1 really is just a Wikipedia summary. It's like a first draft of a plot outline where it's like, a writer goes to a town, there's magic happening there. It's weird, but all of that can be summarized with an altered world event happens and Alan Wake, the writer who manifests reality with his words, disappears into an area known as the Dark Place. And that's all that happens in Alan Wake 1, and that's all that's relevant in Alan Wake 1 to Alan Wake 2.
Hey, Alan. Thank God it picked up. I thought I lost you again.
Who are you? Why are you helping me?
Who is this
Did you
person?
go deeper? To the overlap?
Are you talking about the murder site? Yeah, I did.
That's fantastic, Alan. We're closer to getting out. We're making progress.
Well, we would be if you would answer my damn questions.
Last time we spoke, you were pretty worried about Alice.
Oh my god, is it Tom?
Did you ever check Parliament Tower? To make sure she really got out of the dark place?
Well, of course she got out. That's why I'm here. That's the whole goddamn point.
Be very careful, Alan. The dark presence is stealing from you. It can already manifest as your double. Scratch will
Wait, hello?
So see, like, this is what I mean when I say, like, this game is doing a lot of heavy lifting to set things up on its own. I don't need to play Alan Wake 1 to know who Mr. Scratch is. They literally just introduced that he's Alan's double and it's the Dark Place stealing from him. Like, that's all we need to know. We now know exactly who Mr. Scratch is. Mr. Scratch earlier was referred to as a euphemism for the devil. Like, there we go. That's everything. We're not missing anything by not playing Alan Wake 1. That's really good signposting. That's really good setup. That's how you make a sequel stand on its own while still being connected to its original. RF says, how do you feel about Jessie's development and Control? I really like Jessie. I think she's a really cool character. I think it works really well by the end of the game. We'll save talk about Jessie for when we play Control, I think. Because it's going to happen. On the channel, I mean.
Writer. Maybe he was a victim. The cult, using his words. Or maybe he was the monster behind it all. Either way, Alice Wake, his ex, she knew things. It was there in her art for all to see. A cry for help. The darkness she'd witnessed. And that put her in danger.
Was Alice here? In the story?
Kettle says we get to play Control here. I'm stoked. I mean, I'm playing Alan Wake 2. At this point, we're going to play Alan Wake 1 and Control. Maybe I'll play Quantum Break if I want to put myself through that suffering again, because that game's not very good. But we'll see. This looks like the oldest house. Oh, yeah. Big time. I wonder if we meet Jessie in this game, I'm gonna lose my goddamn mind. Haunting Initiation 3. Oh man.
Alice's photo equipment. Set to go off when the door opens.
And we know from Control that Alice is an agent of the FBC. Or at least she knew about them.
Get out! Leave me alone!
Alice! Alice!
RF says, if you answered my question about Jessie, I didn't hear it. I said I like Jessie, but we'll save it for when we eventually play Control. I'll save my character analysis for when we play that game. This is like a cool, like, mirrored world effect in this room. It's really neat.
Alice. This is a photo of Scratch. How did Alice get this?
That's
Is he
Alice right
stalking
there.
her?
Thought that was Jessie for a second, but no, that's Alice. Okay, neat. Imagine having an elevator exit directly into your home. Oh my god. This is the ocean view door from Control. The one that leads to the one that
This is
Jesse
the door
hears
to my
Alan
study,
through.
where I wrote my books.
Huh.
This symbol wasn't here before.
So yeah, so in the Ocean View Motel, when Jesse goes there, there's a bunch of doors that lead to different motel rooms, and this is one of them. And behind this door, she hears Alan typing at his typewriter, trying to get out of the dark place.
Alice's video camera. No memory card inside.
So I think Alan is still technically in there. Video art, dock on screens, multiple. Focal point of the dark place. Can't go in there, that's a cabinet. Oopsie. Where do I go? Locate the memory card. Imagine having this many shelves. This is a nice apartment. DLSS artifacting.
The door was locked.
Where could it be? That's a projection screen. That'll be neat. There's a projector. Can I interact with anything? No. Here we go. Part 1.
Alice's memory card.
All right, let's do this.
When I was younger, photography was everything to me. I moved to New York thinking I'd make it as an artist. And then I met Alan. We had a good thing. We were both dedicated by our creative ambitions. The only difference was that Alan's work made money. He brought me work when he could. I took his promo shots, created covers for his books. I'm sure he forced his publisher into it. I was taking photos, just not my photos. And that gnawed at me. Things got complicated sometimes, but that's life, right? We loved each other. Then Alan hit a block. I brought out a meaner side of him. One I didn't like. I set up a trip to see a doctor in Washington. I didn't tell him until we got there. We argued. Things went wrong. And he was just gone. Drowned, allegedly. It's easy for people to think it was my fault. Well, I do too sometimes. About 6 years ago, I started hearing noises in the night. Typewriter keys clacking. Voices. Alan was back. Haunting me. was Alan. And yet, it was a monster.
Scratch, yeah.
He always did have anger in him. I set up cameras around the apartment with motion sensors and flashes. Now, when the monster comes, I turn it into art. My nightmares caught on film. And this is the focus of my new exhibition. To show people the world is so much darker than they ever knew. I'm calling this exhibit The Dark Place.
Alice. Scratch was terrorizing her. Why?
Spooky. So yeah, I think that was, so if I remember correctly, Alice, so I said earlier, Alice is an agent of the Federal Bureau of Control. I don't think she's an agent. I think she consulted with them on the case when they were searching. But I don't remember exactly. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how that goes. But she is at least aligned with them, I think, or she's aware of their existence. And that's powerful. But yeah. I think that's it. I think that's all. That's all I have to say about that. It's coming back to me slowly. I'll have to look into that. But yeah, so if Alice is searching for Alan still, and she's been interviewed by the FBC, then she knows and understands what she's dealing with, and that's why she was more dangerous. What do I need to do? Look for Alice. Okay. Yeah. Doris McGraw says they questioned her when investing in the Bright Falls AWE. Yeah, she was mentioned in the Bright Falls AWE notes, but I believe she also was at the listening station in Bright Falls as well for some period of time, because she's mentioned there. Was she an FBI agent now? Something like that, I thought. Silly me. I got it mixed up. Bleh. That's fine.
I sat in the writer's room and wrote a story. Initiation. To project myself through the dark place, to look for a way out. The story had brought me here, brought me nowhere. Looped me back. I was writing the story. And in the story, I now stepped into the writer's room. But there was no one here writing it.
Huh. Oh, the door. Okay. Well. Dang. So yeah, let's just go over things. So I feel bad that I had it twisted. It's all coming back to me now. So with Control, the events of the Bright Falls AWE and Alan Wake 1 are investigated by the FBC, which leads to the FBC building the listening post at Cauldron Lake that we see in this game. The AWE monitoring station witnesses the events of this game taking place. We know that much from not only the AWE DLC, but just the fact that it's noted that there's been more and more AWE frequencies happening, or it's been happening there with more frequency on the monitoring stations. There is a FBC agent who is referenced in those files, and I think I got them mixed up with Alice Wake because Alice Wake is also mentioned in relation to that person in those files of, like, you know, whoever was interviewing her. So that's why I got that confused. Okay, so I have it straight. It's not Alice who's with the FBC, which is very good, but it does mean that she understands that they exist, which is equally scary. Not that I think that she's a bad guy, but if she's messing around with this stuff and understands the full context of this other world, of AWEs, and is trying to trigger them to get Alan back, that's gonna be upsetting for a lot of people. There's gonna be a lot of FBC agents who are not happy with that. Like, really not happy with that. So, yeah, wow. All right. That's wild. Saga.
Okay, let's recap what you've told us so far, Ellen. For the past 13 years, you've been trapped in a nightmare dimension called the Dark Place. Yeah. It's like New York, but it's not New York.
So dark.
It can be reached from the bottom of Cauldron Lake, but it's not really under the lake. And after all this time, you've managed to get out.
Yeah.
But so has your evil doppelganger. Mr. Scratch? Or is it the Dark Presence?
Both. It's interchangeable. He's Scratch when he looks like me, but he can change into this other form.
And Scratch, the Dark Presence, wants to rewrite the world in his own image.
Which would be in your image, as he looks just like you.
And turn the world into a fucking nightmare.
During Deerfest, which is scheduled to take place in a couple of days. You got out of the Dark Place by writing a novel, the pages we've been finding. But your double edited it into a horror story that's now changing reality, taking over people, making them crazy, bringing the Dark Place to Bright Falls.
Yes, fiction coming in contact with the Dark Place can change reality. The story is coming true, soaking into everything, like darkness when night falls. But last time
This will be back in 2010.
Yes, last time it didn't happen all at once. The story came true bit by bit as it unfolded. And that dark presence was still bound to the lake. I stopped it before it got the ending it wanted. Before it broke free. Based on that, there's still time.
Which brings us to your magical light switch.
The clicker. Magical doesn't quite cover it. Scratch wants it to bring about his ending. That can't happen. If I can get the clicker, I can send him back to the Dark Place, make all this shit go away. Look, I know it's batshit crazy. My memory is full of holes, and I'm not sure how much I can trust. It's like a half-forgotten dream.
Mr. Wake, Alan, we've seen our share of batshit crazy in the past 24 hours. What I want to know is, why am I? Why are we written into the story?
I think I saw you. Or a vision of you in the dark place. I think you helped me reach out and escape somehow. With that in the story, Scratch would have edited it to get to you. To hurt you. We are all in danger.
It's insane. And there's so much of it. Have you ever heard of the Cult of the Tree?
Creepy bunch. In the habit of wearing deer masks, performing murder rituals, victims turning into monsters possessed by darkness. Possibly inspired by a horror story written by a certain author. Ring any bells?
The cult. Yes. Yes. They have the clicker.
Okay.
If the cult has the clicker, does that make them Scratch's followers? How are you so certain they even have the clicker?
They could be working for Scratch. I don't remember. It's all confused.
Alan, if I'm gonna act on this information, you need to be honest with me.
Yeah, of course.
Is he confused? Or is he hiding something?
Okay. The cult and the clicker, Scratch.
Wake said the cult has the clicker. How does he know?
The writer is the reader. The next chapter, the next chapter, the next chapter. Keep the pages safe, the dark shining of the words.
Wake is hiding pages. That's how he knows the cult has the clicker.
Okay, that's good to know. You're a rookie. I'm writing this letter to follow up. I would like to attract your attention to Bright Falls residents. Ted Lane, a car key was recovered from the local something. Keys belong to you. The autopsy report showed that they had. Okay, so this is the incident report talking about what happened with the murders. That's interesting. I'm trying to remember something. So we mentioned earlier that like there's a teaser in Quantum Break that sets up Alan Wake 2, where someone named Anderson and Alex Casey or just Sam Lake are standing there. I don't know if they're actually named in the thing, but in Quantum Break we see like a different version of this reality, a different version of this story starring these characters, just like Alan was talking about. I think Saga was played by a different person. I don't really remember what she looked like. I remember her being like a blonde lady who I thought maybe was Alice. Maybe that's what I was getting confused about, is that it looked like Alice. I'm still hung up on this, that I'm just really confused where I thought that she was a member of the Bureau of Control. I keep wondering why I thought that. It's got to be that. But I'm trying to think as well, though. I vaguely remember... I remember there being some connection to Alan Wake 1 that people talked about with Anderson. And the only thing I can think of... I'm trying to think. The only thing I can think of is that it's related to the brothers on the farm, who I think in universe are the old gods of Asgard, as in the band. So I just don't remember though. Is Saga related to the Andersons? Because that's their last name, right? It was like Odin Anderson. I don't remember the other one. I don't remember their names. I thought it was like Odin and Loki or something Anderson. But if that's the case, then that would be interesting, because it would make sense why the lady in town recognized Saga. if she's from here, and it would also explain why she has a super Scandinavian sounding name, and she's from Sweden or whatever, or her family's from Sweden. So, yeah.
Wake has a double, Mr. Scratch. Where is he now?
A cloud of wrath wears my face. The dark place in your place. Scratching out my body of work.
Scratch is here, in Washington. He's hunting Wake.
Scratch and Wake.
Scratch looks just like Wake. Why?
Don't wake up the dreamer if your life is a dream. I swam to the shore, but the water is rising.
Wake and Scratch are clearly connected. Maybe Scratch got out because Wake did. Or vice versa.
RF says, the OG Saga was in Quantum Break, played by a white actress. I suspect they will write this as an alternate universe version of the Saga we see in Alan Wake 2. Also, she looks like Alice Wake in Quantum Break. Okay, so that must be why I was thinking that Alice was the one investigating Alan Wake's disappearance. That would make sense then. That must be why I got that confused. Because I do remember that in Quantum Break, and I remember the coffee cups, her and Casey drinking the coffee cup at the same time. So, however, as far as I suspect they will write this as an alternate universe version of the Saga we see in Alan Wake 2, I think they kind of already have, right? Like they were like, with Tim, he was like versions of me that aren't me. So it's like maybe, yeah, I mean, and so we know that that other universe, that Quantum Break universe with Martin Hatch and Sean Ashmore's character's name in that game, Joe Time Man, you know, as just an alternate draft, basically, maybe that Alan was writing. So that would make sense why they're different people. I mean, obviously, outside of just like casting decisions, I don't think that Quantum Break thing was ever meant to actually be, you know, I don't, in a perfect world, you know, priorities during development change and games end up shifting around and casting changes and stuff. So that makes sense. That's really interesting. Okay, I'm getting a clearer picture of things now from what I remember of these games. It really would have been, man, I really wish that I had replayed. I wish I had time to replay Alan Wake 1, Control, and Quantum Break before playing this game because it would have been so good for the channel, but it's fine. Same with Max Payne. Yeah, Max Payne being a different take on Alex Casey. Interesting. This is all very interesting. All right, I'm untangling the threads in my head. We're getting somewhere. I hate that the radio constantly is telling me that we have stuff, even though we don't.
Okay, Mr. Wake. I know you have more pages of the manuscript on you.
You don't understand how vital these pages are. They're the only way I can know what's coming.
You're not the only one trying to solve this. This is our job.
Okay. Here. Now, this is all I have. Be careful with them. Inside the trailer, at the outskirts of Watery, Saga had seen Wake's fabled clicker for the first time, in the hands of the Cult of the Tree. A cultist stared at her. She drew her weapon.
Derp says, Mr. Door is a legally distinct Martin Hatch from Quantum Break. I mean, again, I think it's just, it's not even legally distinct. It's just they're all the same concept of a character. Or at least Martin Hatch is an idea on Mr. Door, on Warland Door, and all these things, right? It's intriguing. What did I just get? I got manuscript pages. Oh my god, 1,000,000 weapon upgrades. I have just completely forgotten to touch this.
Saga was sure she had hit the Taken in the head, but had not even slowed the monster down. She took aim and fired again. Another headshot. This time, the Taken staggered.
This is great. That's excellent. Deals increased damage to enemies that are stunned, blinded, or knocked down. Hell yeah.
The Taken was momentarily out of action, but not for long. Saga raised the sawn-off shotgun to stop it, once and for all.
Nice. All right, manuscript pages. We got more.
Standing inside the trailer at the outskirts of Watery, Saga had seen Wake's fabled clicker for the first time, in the hands of the cult of the Tree. Her mind reeled from what the horror story was now claiming about her. Her life, her past. She didn't accept it. She stepped out of the trailer. She needed air. But she wasn't alone. A cultist stared at her from behind a deer mask. She drew her weapon, shouted, ran after him.
So it's interesting. I think what's happening here is that Saga, I mean, this is what we're basically just talking about, right? Like, Saga was a predefined character. She is a thing that has existed across all of these different drafts, and she's remembering her life differently, or the life that she's led up to this point has been different as she's being rewritten into this story. And that's probably why Alan didn't know who she was when they first contacted each other. Just, earlier when they were speaking through the veil, or speaking through the overlap. And that's what that is. It's an overlap. Okay, that all makes sense. This is all checking out. So Saga, her daughter didn't die as far as she knows, because her life up to this point has been a different character. But now as she's being written into this story, that past is becoming true, and the characters who have entered this story are changing and are believing the version of her that exists in this draft. That is really interesting. Boy howdy. Boy howdy. What a video game, huh? Yeesh. This is deep stuff.